Okay, everybody, this is our CIT 261 final group presentation. I'm Mike Crump. I've also got Adam Hyatt, Emmanuel Figueroa, and Tom Hall. And this is the demonstration presentation of our PMAP, our project management application. So we'll take a turn each, go through and explain what we did, why we did it, and what our contributions were, and we'll summarize at the end. Whether we were on track or not, at the beginning of the semester, we started looking at what we thought were the requirements for the project, and we kind of did an early run through. We thought we could do a scripture tracker application, somewhere where you could select your reading level and a starting and an end point throughout any of the scriptures, and then calculate the time to read that span. We thought it would be good, but at the suggestion of our instructor, we switched gears. We kind of dropped that, and we tried to focus on more of a real life business problem, something that we could solve there. So we dropped the scripture tracker app, and we started looking at what experience we had in the business industry, what common problems businesses have, and we started thinking about project management. So we started kind of pulling together our resources on what we knew there, and changing around our application. Adam, you want to go ahead and talk a little about that?
Sure. Yes, let me share again.
Jake?
If it'll load. Okay, so on the new application, like you said, we were trying to get the project management app going, and obviously we knew that the project management is something that's pretty important to most businesses, and so we figured we could start out with having a list of all the employees, list the tasks that they were working on was in along with it. We were going to have an overall pie chart at the top where we would list the overall completion of the tasks or project, and then when we clicked on each person, it would give us a pie chart of where they were in the task, how far completed, and whatnot. We were going to have an email to button and notification to each person, and a couple of other ideas that we had. We were pretty ambitious at the start. So kind of paring down some of those as we went on, because some of those are a little complicated as far as the coding required, and due to some of the time constraints, it didn't work out. But we did get a number of features working that we did want to have working. So and that was the overall view of the tasks, or the project. Go ahead. Hi, Emmanuel.
Hello guys, everyone. Let me share my screen. Right. Part of the project, as Adam mentioned, was the intention to create a project management application. So as the time passed, we discovered that it comes with a couple planning and challenges. So the main purpose of the project application was to help the people who was going to use the application to keep in contact with other people to continue the fluency of the job and the assignments. So one of the things that we did in the application was to create a couple options I'm sorry, I'm having little difficulties here in the application. Oh no. Well, let me go back to the previous screen. Sorry guys, for some reason it's not opening the slide, but pretty much what it shows is that each associate has a different assignment, and what we try to do with that is to help the constant communication between the person who is assigned to the specific assignment, to the people who is reviewing the application, and identify exactly what the task is. And an application requires at different stages. So as we went through the application, we discovered that planning was the main tool of this. That's it for my part.
Okay, yeah. So, so yeah, planning was definitely a big part of the project. So, to accomplish the things that we were envisioning, we needed a lot of things, and then we implemented a lot of them, but to really complete the app and to make a really good working app that we could actually get some value out of, we'd probably need a few more things. So in there already are some for loops to iterate through arrays and assign data that was originally in a JSON file to arrays in the JavaScript file. There's a few if-else conditional statements and some functions, variables, and some parameters passed in the functions. And yeah, like I said, there's some arrays that store the data in the JSON file, like this one. So there's an array of objects like this one. So we also used the DOM manipulation in the JavaScript file to create a table, create rows, headers, table data in the table with the JSON data, this JSON. Also in the JavaScript file, we manipulated some CSS and changed some things around. Probably the biggest function of the whole JavaScript file is this XML HTTP request, which makes a call to the server to get this data from this file, from this JSON file that was stored on the server, and bring it into our index file in a table. So to go a little bit further than that, we'd probably we'd implement a few more different things so that we could really get the app where we wanted to, like getting data from an existing table that could be manipulated and then updated to the display table, so that a project manager could go and make changes and then get a more permanent version of the table. So here's some of the technologies and the tools that we used. At the beginning of the project, I don't think any of us knew or could foresee some of the challenges that we'd face. I think the biggest one was organization and getting used to working as a team on software. Using GitHub was a big part of changing the software and making changes and updating everybody's local copies of the software. That was a challenge. And probably the biggest challenge was just not having a really firm idea of what we wanted to accomplish. In the future, if we had a team manager, that would be nice. But to have a really clear goal of what we wanted to accomplish would really affect the project as a whole. So I guess we could go and talk about the individual contributions. So Mike, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So yeah, like you said, we can kind of switch gears, talk about contributions. It was difficult. You know, we heard about how there needs to be a bad guy on the team, and that is something that we probably could have done a slightly better job with, somebody who could delegate specific tasks to one another. Personally, my coding experience is pretty limited, just a couple other CIT courses. So I came into it with, you know, I've got some administrative background, so I tried to capitalize on that and do what I could for scheduling meetings or recording meetings or posting meeting notes to our community page. But besides that, I did do some assistance with the code. Here's Notepad++, which I use more often than not. Once we get into our actual app, which we'll demonstrate here in a minute, there are some drop-down menus, and I got to do a little bit of work with creating tables and table headers and rows and data and adding that in, just so there were, you know, different options for the drop-downs. So there was a spot where you could pick the project you were working on, as well as employees and tasks and status. So I got to do some work with table code, although this was, you know, it's been tweaked throughout several iterations. It's been revised, but I still got to practice with that. And also just some of the basic CSS. There's some on hover, just visual cues as you're looking at this. So I got to do a few things with this. The initial scripture tracker and the project management were, I think, kind of my ideas. So I put out those initial sketches. So for any headaches that we may have had, I guess you could call me the bad guy for that. But that was pretty much my contribution. I think it was definitely more of an administrative role. Adam, I'll pass over to you.
Okay. So one of the parts that I had was the rotating pie chart. Though when I implemented it initially, it was a flat chart, and Tom kind of found a couple of fun things you can do with it to make it all spinny and fun like that. Another thing that I did was located a way to get into the table or into the app using the method over on this side. However, the issue I ran into was the text that I found that I helped things together didn't really put the data into rows or columns and rows like I wanted to, and through some effort from Tom, build it into this, show the want it as is shown here. We have a nice little table here that shows up. So those are the couple of the contributions that I had, CSS and whatnot. And yeah, that's about all I have. Emmanuel.
Right. Thank you, Adam. One of my contributions was pretty much like almost like Mike, administrative, and I'm not pretty good. I'm sharp in coding, and I really enjoy to work with these smart guys. I'll learn from them, and I try to work with a couple of applications that we implemented, like GitHub, which is great. However, for different reasons, for region internet issues, I wasn't able to use it. So, but I was trying to implement an email Dropbox, but we discovered later that it was needed to have a server, which it wasn't able to happen in the application. But as the process of learning how the application has to become from an idea to a reality, I was a contributor and with ideas and how to make it happen, and with pretty much the research and things like that. So I have to recognize that I've been involved with the great people around this class. So, and because of them, I learned from it. Tom?
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. It was really fun working with the guys. I'd also like to add, Adam was the main person to host the app, and he had a server that he put together. I think out of his house. I think he built a web server and
Correct.
hosted the site on a server, so we could see the Ajax calls, we could see the changes, we could see what it was like when it was live. So that helped out a lot. Made a big difference for working on the app throughout the process, and for kind of the last kind of concluding weeks really helped to see what it looked like live, because it's, it makes a big difference when it's live versus on your machine. So some of the things that I like are that it pulls in this data from this JSON file with the XML HTTP request. I think what would be really cool is, so it hides. So here's the initial table. You can make changes to it and blah blah blah, and then when you click create table, it pulls this in. So what would be cool is to have this table come back after we load this, so that the project manager could make changes, update the table, and then have an option to email it out to whoever. But yeah, it's fun making the JSON file and working on the JavaScript file, and kind of doing some of the HTML coding. It would have also been fun to try and copy how Angular does a for loop through the elements to display the table like that, so the index code could be a lot more concise. But yeah, I think it was a fun thing. The biggest thing I learned, though, was not so much in the coding part, but the organizational part. Working with a team, pushing, pulling from a repository, and the biggest thing of all was creating a crystal clear idea of what the app is going to look like. That probably would have made all the difference in the world if we had like really good sketches. And to be honest, I think if I were to do it over again, I would spend like 90% of the time just on the planning part, because once it's planned out really well, the coding part, that's the easiest part of the whole thing. So anyway, it was really fun working on the app. I'm glad that we kind of got some cool things going. And originally this would hide, you have to click this twice to hide the table, but we got it working on the first go. So, and this little thing's cool. So anyway, it was fun working on it. Learned a lot of really valuable things. And I guess I'll just pass it over to anyone who wants to add any final remarks.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. This really was a fun project to work on. I think every time I see code being written, or if I get to jump in and drive for a bit, it just helps me. The more I see it, the better. Working with a diverse team is always great. It's good real life experience. We all have our different strengths and our weaknesses, and I think we each capitalized on those, and we did some good work together. Yeah, if we had more time, this could be a fun project that we could continue with. we see that there really could be value to something like this. It wouldn't be that difficult to make this a very viable application that somebody could use out there. It just needs a little more time and polish. But I am at least proud of what we've done, and I appreciate the time I've got to spend with you guys. It's been fun working with you and learning from you. Anybody else?
I agree.
Sure. Really quickly, but one of the things that we need to recognize from the team is that we were committed about when we agreed to meet, and we were desirable to meet and to be able to communicate constantly, not just in the meeting. So keeping in constant communication from chatting, emailing. So that was great. And I know, like you got, like Mike said, and Tom, and it's been a difficult time also and a learning time. But we learn from our strengths and from the things that we need to improve. And definitely every individual has different strengths. So I guess putting that together, we accomplished the final goal was creating the application. And after all, what we learned also is that at least one on my part is that I got a little less scared of affronting or approaching things that we didn't have a guidance with. So I think that was a good thing for me, because most of the time I could get scared easily and not take approach or something. But I'm grateful for this class and for every one of you guys. Thank you very much.
Okay.
If anyone else want to share something?
Yeah. Any other remarks?
Yeah, I also enjoyed this. I think we had we kind of were a little slow getting started. I think there was a little confusion, and then once we all started kind of learning the topics early in the semester, I think it helped toward the end. And it was interesting to see in the last 2 weeks how everything just kind of came together. Tom was a big help with his. He had probably the most experience with web development and whatnot. And he was a great help in troubleshooting when we'd get code in there that appeared to be working and then we'd have issues or couldn't figure something out. He'd always be able to step in and help out getting that fixed, and that was a real big help. Yeah, just grateful for the team we had, and thank you all for being there to work with. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys. I think this kind of wraps it up. We're a little over our time, but it's been fun. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and stop this broadcast now.